Welcome back to the Sega Guys podcast, Sega fans, where we turn through the pages of history and travel to a December 30 years in the past. I'm Dan the Mega Driver, and I'm joined by my good friend, the James Cools to my Michael Hardy. It's James the SEGAHolic. How you doing, mate?
Theoretical to come up now. That's it, mate. I'm very good, mate. I'm very good. It's not been up to much. I've been kind of starting to re-watch Dexter, the original Dexter. I haven't watched it since back in the day, and I actually stopped watching it after season 4, whenever Rita gets killed by Trinity. Spoiler alert if anybody's not watched it. But
don't stop that. Stop there when you watch it again.
Aye, it's because I think the showrunner changed and it just went downhill for there. So it's like, even I stopped watching it after a couple episodes of season 5. It just felt like such an anticlimax. But whenever I wasn't well and I was sleeping a few weeks ago, I watched New Blood. Finally went to watching New Blood, and I watched Resurrection as well. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go back and watch the first original series again and kind of relive it, because it still feels pretty fresh. Because I remember bits and bobs there, like the main kind of bits, but like kind of usual kind of little filler parts. I'm kind of like, oh yeah. Yeah, so it still feels a bit kind of fresh. So I'll see if I manage to stomach the later seasons after Rita's death. But aye, mate, that's that. No real gaming time. Working on the VF trilogy video at the time of recording this still. It'll have been out by the time this airs, well and truly out, because this is of course a Winterfest episode. So, aye, mate, what about yourself? How have you been last week?
Do you know what? It's Christmas and preparations and work and everything's kind of stopped my gaming time for the most part. Just been dipping in and out of things. Still playing Unicorn Overlord like a year later. Just working my way through that, and then mostly stuff for the channel. Virtua Fighter 5, Revo World Stage, bit of that. I did play a bit of mostly Football Manager. Still got its hooks into me. I can't say, like, every time I've got a few minutes, if I'm, I've got my PC on, play the first half, because I'm not going to make any tactical changes in the first half. See what we're looking like. Can we either praise or berate the team? Maybe make some changes, then go on with the next bit. And yeah, I'm in the January transfer window in my first season, mate, and I can't put it down. But yeah,
just to ask, mate, are you full blown Ange Postecoglou? Do you just? I know he's been sacked and all that, but do you just go all out attack?
Well, mate, no, I'm.
Do you picture yourself winning trophies here? I don't need pictures, mate.
I'll probably play more like Pochettino. It's free flow and counter attack. But yeah, managed to got Spurs into the Champions League places at the moment, and semi-finals of the Carabao Cup. So not too bad. I'm on manager of the month, so pretty happy with the way it's going. Signed a couple of wonder kids. It's addictive. It's crack, mate.
mate. Do you want a job at Rangers? You're convincing me you could do a job here. You'll be better than who we've got now. It's from one calamity to another. Aye, good stuff, mate. I've no touched a Football Manager game in a long time. I just felt like it dead bloated. Let's see, setting up training schedules and scouting networks and all that. I was like, I just want to go back to picking my players, holding the space bar down and getting really good at reading commentary at 300 miles an hour. I was like, like Johnny Five, more input. It's nah.
Yeah, it's intimidating how in depth it is now, but you can delegate. Like, you can get a director of football and scouts and other people to just go negotiate the contract for me, do this, and you get them to do a bunch of stuff, and it seems to work out if you do that and just delegate shit. But yeah, apart from that, mate,
what's happened to football, man? Sporting directors and directors of football and all that. I mean, head coaches instead of managers. XG, VAR.
It's got VAR in it as well. Yeah, it's a heart in mouth when someone's got a goal and you see it's you get the VAR comes up, or same with penalties and offsides. It's just like, oh, but it's the modern game in all its glory, I guess.
Modern football is as bad as modern gaming, mate. It's like they're taking the beautiful game, the most simple game in the world, and they've made it overly complex. See if somebody says XG to me, honestly, I just roll my eyes. I'm like that. Who
I still don't
cares?
fully understand what it is. It's just, you know, I don't. Well, it sounds like nonsense to me, but just overcomplicating thing. Why not have 48 teams in the World Cup? And it's
Oh,
just
aye. Let's have 48 teams in the World Cup, take Scotland 27 years to qualify for one, and get drawn against two of the three teams that they played at France 98. How's that even possible that we get Brazil and Morocco? I mean, that's who were in the group. It was Brazil, Morocco, and Norway at France 98. I'm sure it was Norway. I'm sure it was Norway. I go Brazil and Morocco again, but Morocco are like way better than they were back then. Like, so, aye, that'll be fun. We're just there to get pushed, mate. Basically, yes, that it's just
yeah.
Tartan Army will turn up and have a good time, and we'll
Free,
probably lose all three games.
free games in the US, mate. But yeah, football was better 3 decades ago, like everything, mate. World Cup '94, then 1995, which brings us on to the topic at hand, which is Sega Saturn Magazine Issue 2 in our new sub-series. So we did the first episode, which was a load of fun, and I've been really looking forward to this one, mate. And of course, it being the December issue, this is, of course, as you say, a Winterfest episode. So yeah, mate, I've been really looking forward to getting to this one because at least the first half of this magazine is absolutely jam-packed with stuff. What about you?
Aye, it's after the debut issue where we had that wee kind of period where you didn't really know if they were still Sega magazine, then had the Sega 16 kind of magazine bit at the end, and you're opening with 32X adverts and things like that. I was a wee bit confused, but this is like full blown 100 pages of Sega Saturn goodness, and two of the big three dominate the reviews, and rightly so.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we crack it open, mate, got a couple of pages of kind of adverts at the very beginning, as you would with any advert at that time. Nice covers great, by the way. The James Cool's Smarty in there, but then you've got the contents page. But what I wanted to jump into, it's in the news section, but it's kind of like the editorial opening. Is this round two fight? And this really is kind of, yeah, we know that Sega have had their problems this year. The Saturn had a load of abuse, no TV advertising. It really does keep talking about the fact that there's been no TV advertising, and Sony have
Mm-hmm.
had this massive marketing budget. They've splurged and everything, but they talk about now the Christmas campaign has begun, and they talk about how strong the Sega Saturn lineup is. So this is full of optimism. You talk, then you got to think about where we are at this point. You've got the big three, you've got X-Men: Children of the Atom. We've got the next big news story of which this is kind of buried into around
Mm-hmm.
PlayStation exclusives coming there. It's talking about the Saturn version of Wipeout is going to be every bit as good as the PlayStations. So they're saying on here, if you haven't bought a Saturn, this news alone should make your mind up to go out and get one. And if you already own one, congratulations, you have without a doubt made the right decision. Which there's a few things in here, mate, where I don't know if it was this subconsciously been embedded in our minds for 30 years, but they sound like us. Discrediting the bullshit rumors and all that sort of stuff.
You may be right, mate. Subconsciously, I think that we are channeling Sega Saturn magazine here into it. It's like the influence was stronger than we realised. But the line in here that was interesting was Sega's European product and marketing director Barry Giaffrato says that 95% of all PlayStation games will appear on the Saturn, and he means it. So you didn't get Tekken 2, Metal Gear Solid, Final Fantasy 7, Gran Turismo. It's like, but I mean, the Saturn version of Wipeout dominates that kind of news page. And rightly so. The headline says, shock news, Wipeout to appear on the Saturn. but it also goes into, quite a detailed piece about Psygnosis, because although it's Wipeout that's being developed, there's other Psygnosis and PS1 games that are coming to Saturn as well, mate.
Yeah, so I mean, as we know how Wipeout turned out, and we'll get there eventually, it's not every bit as good as the PlayStation. I think they are using what we must be obviously PlayStation screenshots here. You've got the full transparency on the shield in the very first photo that you see on here. Um, Clearly running at a slightly higher resolution than the Sega Saturn version. Images are a bit cleaner. They haven't got that signature Saturn lick that we've talked about so many times that we love. People like the PlayStation look as well. But yeah, it's interesting that they talk about the games that they talk about here. So they say this includes hits such as Destruction Derby, 3D Lemmings, and Discworld, which had all come out on the PlayStation at that point, and all three of those games came to the Sega Saturn. So they say they're all out in the shops now. And then you've got Adidas Power Soccer, which didn't come. Crazy Ivan, that did, I think. Sentient and Assault Rigs, which didn't. But I remember all the previews for Crazy Ivan, but I can't remember if it got cancelled or not. I've never played it. Well, I'm
No,
going to have to check, I think. But
mate, Adidas Power Soccer, I had that on PS when I picked it up in like a bargain bin after I got mine. It's like a fiver or something. It's like, oh, it's a football game. It's so bad, man.
it's awful.
Aye.
How many of
It's
them
like,
did they make though? There was a lot of them.
was there?
Yeah, there was like Adidas Power Soccer, but I think it was like God, there was a fair few of them. There was like it went up to like 98 or something. I think there was like one, two, three,
Jeez.
and 98. But
No, I
they
just had
were
the first one.
gash.
Oh, mate, it's even talking about just thinking about PlayStation football games. What was the one in PS2? Was it called This Is Football? Where
Yes,
you could dive. There was a
yes.
button on the controller to dive.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember playing that and getting sent. I had about four guys sent off. I got
Yeah,
a game called
dive
off.
everywhere.
Let's just what in the box dive. Yellow card. But I did this Power Soccer. Saturn didn't lose out there with that one not coming. That was a really very poor, very basic football game. All I remember is that shooting was quite decent on it. The actual football play wasn't great, but like you just hit these ridiculously powerful shots, man. It's just like the player models weren't they great. They looked kind of really odd proportions at times
Yeah,
as
they
well.
were.
So they were really odd. But Destruction Derby's feet. I think all these screenshots, so you're right, mate, these are all PlayStation screenshots that I've got. Like that, those Destruction Derby shots are not from not from the Saturn version. Um, but I
No,
mean,
straight away.
we all know how these games turned out on Saturn. I mean, I can play Wipeout on Saturn. Like I can put it on and enjoy it. I mean, I think now if I'm going to play a version, I'll play J.N. Martin's Dreamcast version.
Yeah,
You know, if you really want to play it on a Sega console, that's the way to go. It's now finished. Final release of that's been done. So um, less said about Destruction Derby the better. I think we touched on it in the issue one episode, mate. It was
yeah,
more of a kind of like a tech demo for PlayStation. Once you kind of go over the kind of there's no the hype, but the kind of the impact of seeing like car
yeah,
parts flying across the screen, it kind of lost its allure quite quickly. But still a big deal to see those games coming over. You know what I mean? But it's just a shame that the performance again, it, that early in Saturn's life, it didn't do the system any favors. You know, you'd
yeah,
had like the Virtua Fighter getting criticised. I still think unfairly for some occasional polygonal flickering. Certainly not rings transporting across the screen like a certain video recently. Daytona's big letterboxing, even though it did run, it was PAL optimized to run at the same speed as the NTSC version, sped up artificially, but big borders and obviously the draw distance. People want to take into account 40 cars, 20 cars on track at one time. You know, PlayStation did an easier job, emulate or, try to copy or,
mm,
emulate lesser arcade hardware than Model 2. But all these kind of wee things, they just kind of stacked up. And then whenever the Psygnosis games came over and they didn't quite match up to the PlayStation versions, it was just another kind of stick to beat Saturn with at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, I've just noticed on here, next to you've got at the very top of the page, you've got all the Wipeout teams, and then you've got all images, copyright Sony Interactive, all pictures are taken from the PlayStation versions.
Oh,
So
mate.
there we go.
It's so Sega Saturn Magazine have basically done an 80s Spectrum big box game.
Yeah.
Screenshots taken from Commodore Amiga version.
Yeah, it seems that way, mate.
Aye, so it is right at the top there, aye. So it is.
Graphics on your version may differ.
Aye.
But
Significantly.
yeah. But you can tell why this is massive news at the time. You know, these were killer apps for the PlayStation. Sony didn't really have any first party games. Had some oddball games from various studios or like second party games. I think did Polyphony have that game that they made out? I don't think so. I think that came later, before Gran Turismo. Obviously, that game before Gran Turismo. But you know, the idea that it's effectively Sony first party games are coming to the Sega Saturn is just like, you know, like they were saying in the opening statement. You know, that's all they've got. Obviously, PlayStation to keep all the third party stuff, your Namco games, you know, your Final Fantasy stuff, all the stuff from SquareSoft, and then, you know, Cygnus's games will stop coming over to Sega Saturn and N64 at some point. But you know, you've got to think where we are at the time, December 1995. This is like, well, you know, what's going to stop the Sega Saturn now? Especially if they're all using SGL, which, you know, they're not.
Which they're not. You know, Yu Suzuki and AM2 make these tools to help third party developers out, and they just don't bother their arse using them.
No.
But I mean, I've just kind of scrolled on to the next page, mate, because there was one little red box in the bottom corner of page 8.
Yes.
To see this game mentioned in December 1995, obviously it did come out in 96 in the arcades, but Virtua Fighter 3, hot news.
Yes.
Deep in development at the moment, and although no actual arcade shots have been released on the title yet, there's plenty of news on new characters and game progress. Head of AM2's development, Yu Suzuki, revealed that the team are working on a new sumo wrestler type character, although presently they're having a few problems with the jumping moves, so we may not make it to the final game. And, you know, I love the line at the end. The Saturn version will no doubt follow a few months after that. I mean, it's interesting, though, that even now in development, there's talk about Taka Arashi being difficult because he's the only character in Virtua Fighter history to ever be, like, retired.
Yeah.
Like, it was brought back, you know, for Virtua Fighter 5R, and obviously he's in Revo as well. But he was officially retired after 3 because it was a great idea to add a sumo wrestler, but in the context of how the game works, it was very difficult to fit into the mechanics. So he was officially retired. But interesting to see that even then they're talking about that he might not have made the cut. So,
but I think the way that they handled him is just one of the most intriguing things about that game, because the way that his weight means that every single throw animation for every single character is different when handling him. Oh, and obviously, I think it makes a difference to most of the characters. You know, depending on, obviously, you get Pi, who's tiny, and you get Jeffrey, who's bigger, and then you get Taka, who's massive. And I think it affects their throws and stuff. But yeah, I think obviously they navigated that challenge in there. But I still think that's one of the most compelling things about Virtua Fighter 3 and what set it apart from almost every other fighting game before or since. Obviously, Taka came back, but I don't think his weight has anywhere near as much of an impact as it did in that game. But yeah, that page 8, mate, is absolutely chock full of stuff on here. There's so much. You've got the Virtua Fighter 3 stuff squirreled away in the bottom left corner. Above that, you've got that Neo Geo have signed up for the Sega Saturn, which is a really interesting little article on here. talking about that only game freaks who had too much money, obviously buying the expensive Neo Geo, had these beat 'em up hits, but then they're getting converted to the Sega Saturn. Sega Saturn titles will also appear on Neo Geo in a not too dim and distant future, which is interesting, but that never really happened as far as I'm aware.
No.
It was SNK Neo Geo games coming to the Saturn, but I don't recall any Saturn games going the other way. Um, so the Saturn is the only machine that SNK will convert to, and I don't know if that was the initial agreement, but obviously that would change. King of Fighters '95, and I don't think Fatal Fury 3 came to the PS1, but KOF '96 and Fatal Fury Real Bout and a bunch of other games all came over to the PS1. But they also talk about Polestar coming over, which it never actually did. And it's not been decided whether SNK's own programmers will work on the conversion or if Sega's teams will work on the projects. That's something I need to look into actually, because I'm not sure whether it was SNK internally or whether it's someone
Mm-hmm.
else. I don't think Sega
Mm-hmm.
handled the conversions. I think that's very unlikely. But I get the feeling that SNK did because basically all the Sega Saturn ports are just ports of the Neo Geo CD versions. That's all they are. They perform roundabout exactly the same. So obviously something that I would be very excited about. SNK being a big part of my Saturn journey in kind of '98 onwards. But yeah, I absolutely loved the idea of King of Fighters '95, but I wouldn't actually see it until a preview months later, because obviously I didn't have this magazine at the time. But yeah, all very exciting, mate. But the one underneath from Nvidia, not sorry, so it's getting ahead of myself now. But how on PC now? This is something that is really interesting because the interviews with Jensen Huang have been doing the rounds at the moment. Now it says Shock Horror, Virtua Fighter Remix, and Panzer Dragoon are set to appear on the PC before the end of this year. What is the world coming to? I think they actually came the end of the next. They came in next year, so they're out in '96. It's not that bad, really. Technotype's NVIDIA have developed a 3D accelerator card specifically designed to cope with these conversions, and it will only work with top-of-the-range PCs. And the board comes packaged with Virtua Fighter Remix. Saturn joysticks will also be compatible with the accelerator card. No, they won't. Some of the Sega 16-bit correlates will also be making way to the PC, including Comic Zone, Tomcat Alley, and Sega will be developing specific titles for the PC and will release all of their titles under the logo Sega PC. So they didn't make any exclusive games for the PC at that stage, but I think it was kind of Michael Latham and a few of the team around there that were, I think they considered making PC exclusive games, but they never actually did. But yeah, that Nvidia contract, mate, it was really kind of the beginning. I think it was this that Sega actually invested in Nvidia stock at the time. It was kind of a $5 million investment that they gave to Nvidia for Nvidia to kind of develop this graphics GPU to put into PCs to play these games. Nvidia had no money at the time. They were falling behind the likes of 3DFX and others, so they needed this $5 million from Sega. Sega said, "Well, we'll give you $5 million, but we don't. That's us investing in stock." They actually sold that stock for 300 million around the Dreamcast time. Do you know how much that stock will be worth now?
Go.
$1 trillion.
What?
Yeah. If only, eh?
Wow. Mate, that's crazy.
Just think of where Sega
Gee.
would be if they had $1 trillion of Nvidia stock.
$1 trillion. Jeez,
Insane.
man.
You
Wow.
know, so,
There you go.
so what you you listen to Jensen and he's got a very strong affinity for this era of Sega. Talks very highly about Yu Suzuki, about Virtua Fighter being a pioneer of 3D Ace. Like no one else was doing what Sega were doing, and they weren't. He talks about Virtua Cop and Virtua Fighter. Said no one else was making games like that. Talks about Daytona, which racing games, there were 3D racing games at the time, but it's just another one of these things where he very much is saying it was Sega that made these changes and were driving the industry forward. And yeah, it's great to hear someone with his kind of prominence say that. He said the same on the Virtua Fighter Direct last year as well.
Yeah,
Um,
that's right.
but yeah, Sega selling that stock, it's mind blowing.
Mental. I mean, it just goes to show. I mean, we've said it so many times. Some have mocked us for it, that, but it's true. Like, Virtua Fighter changed the course of this industry. It single-handedly changed. It turned heads. It made major figures, companies refocus and reanalyze where they were going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just, and there's people, that are far more experienced and better placed to say it than us, and they're saying it.
Hmm.
So people who were in the trenches making these deals, seeing this stuff, up close and first hand, and they're saying it. So it's not just us, it's not just fanboy stuff.
No.
It's true.
You got the heads of some of the biggest companies in the world. You've got renowned developers saying it. We don't just make this shit up.
Aye,
Yeah, but
exactly.
yeah. Obviously those. I've never played the Panzer Dragoon port. I do own the PC port of Virtua Fighter, which is it's a bugger to get to run on modern hardware, but to be honest, mate, it's a good port. Put in Virtua Fighter Remix and Virtua Fighter on one disc. Feels like I should have done that with the Saturn version, as I've said before. But there we go.
Aye.
Next, there's a bunch of stuff, but the things that jumped out at me were the Capcom titles, Virgin
Yeah.
publishing them, and yeah, always, and that publishing is still stuck for. God, that was in place for at least half a decade, wasn't it? They're still publishing
Aye.
games on the Dreamcast, weren't they?
Aye, that's right. It still comes up when the PAL releases. Yep.
It's a shame they didn't actually power optimize any of them, which was a
Mm.
source of irritation. Uh, but yeah, you got Street Fighter Alpha here, and you've got Darkstalkers. It just says in the hunt. A little bit further down, it says that version is 70% complete. So that I always thought of this as kind of Capcom's own big three, because you had, as we'll get into later on, you've got X-Men Children of the Atom, got Street Fighter Alpha, the original, and then you've got Darkstalkers, or Darkstalkers 2, as it would be, or a Vampire Hunter, as it's known in Japan. All great games, every single one of them. Although obviously Street Fighter Alpha was superseded very quickly by the sequel. But yeah, I think they're all yeah. That's how I think of it, mate. I think it was in another magazine that I saw all three of these back to back. Might be in CMVG, and I was just like, oh, this is where I was like, I need a Saturn. I need a Saturn now, and it'd be like 12 months of saving to get one.
The thing is, I mean, Capcom, really backed Sega to the hilt. Obviously the relationship kind of was formed with Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition or Special Champion Edition on the Mega Drive. But even though, like, through the Saturn's life and Dreamcast, like, Capcom were just stellar, like real staunch supporters of Sega hardware. The releases that they were bringing were phenomenal. Obviously, the kind of 2D fighting game stuff, but even like the Saturn version of Resident Evil, I know we never got Resident Evil 2, but like the Resident Evil, like, Saturn version, there's many people prefer the 3D character models on the Saturn version.
Yeah,
The 2D backgrounds on the Saturn version are definitely more detailed and a lot clearer. So in terms of atmosphere, the Saturn version wins in that regard. But no, I mean, Capcom were just phenomenal. Their output was incredible.
yeah,
Arguably the best third party partner that Sega had on Saturn, probably, and on Dreamcast.
yeah, almost undoubtedly so. Last thing on here is WrestleMania, the arcade game that was on the preview video last month. I
Shite.
gathered, yeah, I was going to ask, what do you think of this one? You're not a fan.
Nah, mate, it reminds me of as if someone had taken, like, and the Mega Drive WrestleMania game was decent, right? But it's just like as if someone's took the concept of that, mixed it with Mortal Kombat, and come up with this god awful, horrendously animated wrestling game. The best thing about that game is the videos online of the wrestlers doing their moves. Have you seen it?
I've not seen it, no.
Mate, people have said, oh, The Undertaker never broke character in his whole career. People tried to break him. Never could. Like you had Stone Cold try to break him with the alliance stuff. They're breathing down our necks. It's like slapping them and all that. And he's like, you better shut up. And he's kind of stifling the laugh. But the videos of him doing his moves, it's like Mark Calloway gets up in full Undertaker gear after doing like a dodgy leg drop or something, and he's laughing away. And I'm like, mate, he broke character in '95. Like, so,
I need to check that out.
I'll try and find it again and send you it, mate. I was buckled another day, and all their kind of their poses for like the selects, that with the glove, he does that with his big purple glove and all these kind of things. But I mean, the screenshot there, it's Undertaker against Yokozuna. Yokozuna appears to have a cloud in front of him. Don't know if the big man broke some wind in that screenshot, but that's why Undertaker's looking like he's taken aback slightly in that screenshot. I don't know what's going on, but no, it's no great, mate. It's,
no, I'm going to
surprise you now. House?
Yeah, in your house is awful. But I actually do have a soft spot for this one. I do actually quite like WrestleMania, the arcade game. It's I don't know if it's kind of the 80s new gen of the over enthusiastic Vince McMahon commentary. Unbelievable. It's just like it is just Mortal Kombat, but with WWF characters in a ring rather than on a 2D playing field. You do your down forward light punch with Undertaker and he slides across the ring. You do down kick and he does a choke slam, or if you do down heavy kick, he does a tombstone. I think it's great, but it's not the best. I have a lot of affection for it. I do actually have a PAL version that I've had since the 90s. I think it's a great little game.
They should have ported WrestleFest, right?
Yeah, they should have.
I know it's 2D, right? But WrestleFest was phenomenal, right?
But they do that in 1995, and all of the characters from WrestleFest are in WCW. You want to see Macho Man, and you want to see Hulk Hogan. They're in the other corporation.
Yeah, I'm over on WCW now. Yeah.
Right. So there's a few other bits about Earthworm Jim toys. Snatcher getting a conversion. They're getting awfully worried about this FIFA port, mate. Which I don't know why, because they're shit. They mentioned Virtua Fighter 2 and Sega Rally, but we'll kind of jump over that because there's an awful lot of Virtua Fighter 2 and Sega Rally a little bit later on. So, but Toshinden on page 14 was an interesting one, I thought, because they spend a lot of the time saying, "Oh yeah, well the Saturn." It's not a case that the Saturn couldn't do it, and what is it they say here? If the Saturn doesn't perform well, it's not because of the game's power or anything. It's just the fact it will be down to the developer's ability to program the machine more than anything else. They're not too enthusiastic about it. They say it's one of those one-on-one fighting games with weapons and special moves. So I think even then they knew that Toshinden was crap. And so yeah, this single page preview, and even here, mate, it looks awful, doesn't it?
But mate, even you remember back then, man, like people that had PS1s and had this thought it was the absolute bollocks.
Yeah, they did.
They were completely blinded to how shallow and shite the gameplay was because it had texture mapping and fancy weapons and lighting effects and it's not a good fighting game. It wasn't a good fighting game on PS1. It certainly wasn't a good fighting game on the Saturn. And it's just no.
Sega still aren't sure if they're going to be releasing it over here, which maybe they shouldn't have done. It's another one, like you were saying earlier, mate, that it did more harm coming over to the Saturn than the state it did.
Yep.
The lower resolution and the mesh transparencies. Sadly, just didn't do anything for it. Has more content than the original PlayStation game, but it's just, let's be real, it's just more shit.
It's brutal, brutal, man.
Um, Next one I want to touch on was Legend of Four, which is a really early preview. Legend of Four. So this, I don't know if this was actually an early development name for it, but seems to be a merging of Story of 4 2, which is what the PAL version would be called, and Legend of Oasis is what the US version would be called. So, but it's a very enthusiastic preview here because 4 was doing the rounds on the humble Mega Drive, and here he is back again in all its souped-up 32-bit glorydom. In fact, it could possibly be the very first English language RPG to appear on the Saturn. Sorry, but Virtua Highlight and a Mansion of Hidden Souls don't qualify. Mansion of Hidden Souls definitely not. Virtua Highlight, it's crap anyway. Luckily, it looks as good as it'll be. It looks as though it'll be really high quality too, with the same elements from the 16-bit version ported over to the Saturn. Although, of course, the graphics will be completely updated and there's a different storyline too. Yeah, so they talk a bit about how the original was a great game and it was more of like a Streets of Rage than a traditional RPG. But yeah, I'm sure we'll get onto this one as we get through the issues, mate. But I absolutely love this game. It's absolutely beautiful. It's one of those really underrated Sega Saturn titles. The Mega Drive version is obviously a lot more famous, but this one is really understated, really underrated as well. But it's got a beautiful kind of design in terms of the way that the visuals and the music work. It's a work of art from an aesthetic perspective, and the gameplay is fantastic. The stage design the world design can be a little bit frustrating, but it's a fantastic game. So it's good to see this one get its very first airing in Sega Saturn Magazine. Did you ever play this one yourself?
Have not, mate. I have not. I'm aware of it, and the art style of it is absolutely glorious, but it's not what again. At that time back then, all I wanted was arcade ports, mate. And so, see, never.
Yeah.
I'm reading this. I'm literally like that in Mysteria. I'm just turning the page, mate. It's just like, in fact, I've got that, and I've just went straight to the Virtua Fighter 2 and Virtua Cop stuff. It's just
Yeah. Yeah, I think of all the previews that come next, I mean, Mysteria played a bit of. I've never actually played it all the way through. So POPO2 is fantastic, but it's not going to set your world alight, is it? Johnny Bazooka Tone, it's yeah, it's Baku Baku. We touched on. I think we touched on that previous issue. International Victory Goal. Reading through this was I thought really interesting because they were clearly not fans of the original game, which I thought it's a really playable football game. You know, it runs at a full 60 frames per second. But oh dearie me, shall we just let bygones be? Let's put it another way. Can we just forget that Victory Goal ever existed? It's just that, well, it wasn't very good, was it? It may have been a minor success in Japan, but over here, people are hypercritical of footy titles in terms of gameplay. Victory Goal just didn't make the mark, which is a damn shame because until FIFA makes its way over to the Saturn, spoilers, FIFA's awful as well. This is the only footy game available to Saturn owners. But hey, it's not all bad news to see the creators of Victory Goal were more than aware that the game's shortcomings, so they took the game's engine back to the drawing board and started working on a new, updated version of the title. The programmers are working on a new AI for the players, and there's loads of new teams, and their graphics have been reworked too. This is another title that's already out in Japan, but at the moment, there are no plans to release it over here, as there could be more interesting football titles on the way. I think they've got about 4 games mixed up here. So the original Victory go, mate.
I just think it's just a sign of how they were just absolutely wetting their pants at the thought of FIFA 96,
Which is awful.
Which is abysmal. And I can't remember how it reviewed, but it's going to be fun whenever they eventually get to that issue and see what they gave it, given that they've spent like every opportunity like getting really excited about it. So
because FIFA 96 uses 2D sprites instead of polygonal players as well. In fact, FIFA 96 is basically just a port of the 3DO FIFA game, just updated with 96 squads. But yeah, they've got about 4 games mixed up here because they say that Victory Goal was a success in Japan. Obviously, that was J League Victory Goal, not International Victory Goal. So we got a slightly updated version in the US and the UK, called International Victory Goal, worldwide soccer in the US. And in Japan, I think what they're talking about, a game that's already out in Japan, and that is the International Victory Goal version in Japan, which was an enhanced version of the International Victory Goal that we got over here. But when they're talking about new graphics and new AI, they're obviously talking about Victory Goal 96, which turned into Sega Worldwide Soccer 97. So that's 5 games. That all seem to be a bit mixed up there, but easily done because it's a confusing timeline of titles to follow, I think.
My God, man. And anybody slagging off World Wide Soccer 97, come on. And that makes it even worse because we know for a fact how well that reviewed.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I can't remember what they gave it, but I think it was kind of through the roof. It's 90s, I'm sure that they gave it in SSM.
Right, so
Do we want to talk about Sky Target? I'm sure we mentioned it last time. But yeah,
we did, mate, and that was enough.
Yeah, don't need to go into that one. And a nice double spread of Fighting Vipers here. But we talked about Fighting Vipers last issue, so we won't dig into that one. Worms, we won't talk about an awful lot because obviously Worms have been done to death. And then after Worms, from page 24, you've got a deluge of 3DO ports. You've got Solar Eclipse, Blazing Dragons, The Horde, and whatever this other game is. But none of them are.
What the fuck is going on there?
Yeah, I know. It's yeah. It's what's this one? It was because this is the Horde, I think.
The Horde. There's a big guy running about with why a spoon? Why a spoon, cousin?
Yeah. Yeah, the Horde is I've only played a little bit of it. I like the idea of it, but it's just not one I could get into. Blazing Dragons and Solar Eclipse I've never actually played. But yeah, it's funny when I listen to Sonic the Comic, the podcast, in the early throes of the Saturn's life, all that Sonic the Comic reviewed was kind of the 3DO ports, and he kind of built up this perception that that's all the Sega Saturn had at the time was 3DO ports. So yeah, it's the fact that there's so many coming over and they're just pretty meh is frustrating. And talking of underwhelming, there's World Cup Golf as well, which, do you know what, I see this around a lot on eBay pages, and mate, it's not one that I've actually put any time into myself. What about you?
Mate, because this to me looks like just a really upscaled, colourful version of PGA Tour on the Mac, like the original Macintosh that you used to play in school during break. Like, it just, man. Like, gaming was in this weird place. Let's see 3DO, especially this weird place of like digitized people. Like,
yeah,
we can make people look like real life. Oh, let's
why
do a golf game.
Why draw sprites? Just take pictures of people and put them in the game.
You know what I mean? All we have to do is animate the stick. The stick, the club. God, there's a golfers a stick. What? As someone who used to play golf, I really shouldn't have called it a stick. Will you affectionately call them your sticks? Well, we'll pick up the sticks and go for a round. Sure thing. What is we up to tonight? We're fancy a round? Sure, let me just go grab the sticks. It's like, but no.
You didn't you sell a bunch of your gaming stuff for a set of sticks, mate?
Yep. 2007, mate. I don't need this old shit anymore. I've got an Xbox 360 and a 42-inch HD ready 720p plasma with components. I need a new tailor-made R7 Super Quad driver and a burner 3 wood. Let's sell stuff to buy it. 270 quid driver and 130 quid 3 wood, which Panzer Dragoon Saga was £180 of.
Oh, ouch.
And that concludes today's therapy session.
It does, mate. So let's have some let's give some therapy to a few of the readers that
Oh,
decided to write in to Sega
it's
Saturn
your
Magazine.
letters. It's your letters.
So, do you want to go first with your one, mate? Because there's a few in here that are worth picking up, but we'll do one each. So, do you
Aye,
want
the letter that stuck out to me is from B. Bethel from Twyford and Berks, and it's frenzied box opening. It says, "Dear Sega Saturn Magazine, I recently found myself in the nice position of actually having some money left at month end. So off I went to my local computer store and bought myself a Saturn plus an RF lead because my television does not have a SCART socket. However, after a frenzied box opening session, a session of opening a box, when he
No, he
got
must have been
home,
clawing at the packaging.
I know, it's like like a cat at the back door during the
Yeah,
raid stuff.
yeah.
Let me in. Um, yes, after he got home, I read the Saturn handbook. Handbook, not a manual. B. Bethel, we have a handbook in Berks. You know what I mean? Only to discover that I did not need an RF lead, as the Saturn can be run through my video. Now, surely if this is a viable option for people with SCART-free televisions, why was it not made more widely known? I and many others alike have bought a £25 lead that I do not need. Surely information as simple as this could have been better publicised by Sega, or are they too intent on making money at the expense of already overpaying end users? So, Sega Saturn magazine replies, it's hard to apportion blame in this case, Mr. B. Sega could perhaps have made it clearer that any old SCART socket in your house would run your Saturn for you, but then so could Dixon's. Maybe manufacturers just assume on an unrealistic level of technical familiarity on the part of their customers. But future Saturn owners be warned, video SCART sockets are perfect for your console, so no RF required. Right. Now, here's the thing. You're doing that to use the SCART socket, the SCART cable that's with the Saturn, to get it to your TV that doesn't have SCART. How is your video getting into your telly? Through a really crappy connection. There's no SCART. So if you put your SCART into your video and then feed it through into the TV, it's going to look like dung anyway. So it's like, and probably worse than the RF. I don't know. I mean, you're filtering it through another device, but I just thought it was quite funny. Just imagining this person getting home and realizing I've got a SCART socket on my video, my
After
VHS.
after his frenzied box opening.
Yes, after his session and reading his handbook.
I do wonder if any of if B Bethel's listening. Actually, if you are any of these letters writers, do get in touch.
I mean, mate, that would be phenomenal if like we managed to read out somebody's letter and they're like, fuck you, James.
Well, I didn't know you could run it through your VHS player, but I didn't have one in my room that had a SCART socket in. But yeah,
See,
I think
I didn't know either, mate, because I had a SCART socket, so I didn't care.
jammy bastard. I had a little portable TV that was from like the 60s or 70s in my room. But yeah, I mean, you probably would have had signal degradation. You would have had probably a little bit of input latency. I'd imagine not as bad as maybe putting it through kind of modern devices, but yeah. But there we go.
Me with a SCART socket.
Oh, God's sake. For those on the audio podcast on the Radio Sega Winterfest, James is showing the Star Trek character Data looking smug. So the letter I'm picking out, mate, is Mummy, I'm scared. Dear SSM, I have read many magazines over the last few weeks, and I've noticed that many people are slagging off the Saturn in many ways. For example, in one magazine, they pointed out that in the year to come, the Saturn would struggle a lot competing against Sony's machine. What are they saying? They don't even know what Sega have lined up yet. I have also read that Sony's games have been programmed using many different libraries. I hope Sega Rally, Virtua Fighter 2, and many other games made and released by Sega are using their libraries to outshine the PlayStation games. Your magazine is excellent in every aspect. Virtua City is great. P.S. Where's the posters you used to give away? From James Cross, Hale Village in Liverpool. So it's all about the reply says the Saturn has an ace new library, the SGL OS. In fact, you can read more about this fascinating development and other interesting and inspiring insights into the future of the Saturn in our special feature on the subject elsewhere in this issue. P.S. With regards to the posters, they're up on your wall. Yeah, they've got the. We'll probably touch on that when we get to it. Is the debunking Sega Saturn myths part in here, and that's where they go deep into the SGL.
But
Yeah,
yeah, again, mate, you're only 6 months, and don't forget this is December's issue, but it probably came out in November because the magazines were always forward dated. So you're talking about 5 months in, they're fighting fires with Daytona, they're fighting fires with Virtua Fighter, they're fighting fires with Psygnosis games. Then there's people that are already writing in concerned about what other magazines are writing. Like the poor thing just didn't get a chance. It was like it was just written off from day one. It's that's the apparent thing. It's like because these are obviously letters sent in by concerned owners or prospective owners or Sega fans, and they're just highlighting what they are hearing and reading. You're combining it with obviously what would come to pass with these, like the Psygnosis ports, as we mentioned, and the kind of the subpar kind of quality of them compared to the PS version. So, I just fighting fires for day one, mate.
people are writing it off already. These letters. So this is the publication date on this magazine is actually in November.
Aye.
So
always remember that magazines were always forward dated.
Yeah. So the Saturn officially comes out in July. So between July and November, you've got 4 months. They've got to produce this magazine. So really, any letter that's written is going to be, 2 months after launch. So it's not been out at all, and everyone's already got the knives out for it. It's not had a chance. It's mental. How much hatred's already pointed its way. How much are people already saying it's going to fail? Saying all these people are slagging it off. It's unreal how much vitriol was aimed at the Saturn before even we'd seen the first wave of games. You had the launch title, but you hadn't even seen the year one games yet. And what was on what was on the PlayStation that was giving these people this indication that it was the greatest thing on earth? Wipeout, Ridge Racer. I mean, outside of those, what was there? By the time Tekken arrived, we'd seen Virtua Fighter 2 running at 60 frames per second. It's like just marketing bullshit, mate. That's what it came to. It's what it ended. That's what it was. And people getting hard-ons for anything with a Sony brand on it.
That's it. People were infatuated. I mean, also, PS1's a brilliant machine. It had a lot of good games. But at that point in time, in both of their lives in the UK, like you're looking at this issue, right? This is issue 2 of this magazine, right? Dedicated to this system. And look at the games you are being shown, like Virtua Cop, Virtua Fighter 2, and Sega Rally. There's them coming out within like a fortnight of each other, tail end of 95 and early 96. Like, what was there? Like, there was nothing on
not on PlayStation I could rival that.
To touch that. And then people like to kind of go back and say, well, gamers were looking for something different. They were looking for more story-driven narratives. Not in 95 and 96, they weren't.
No.
When Final Fantasy VII arrived and Metal Gear Solid arrived and showed people that games could be more cinematic and storytelling based in that way, then yeah, people started wanting more. And then likewise, people go, well, Namco showed with Tekken 3 that a fighting game shouldn't just be an arcade port. It should have all these extra modes and CGI, videos for each character. I'm like, that's 98 as well.
Yeah. I mean,
like Tekken 2 had CGI stuff as well, but not to the extra game modes in Tekken 3 was nothing like that in Tekken 2.
Yeah. It's it's frustrating, mate, when you look at it back now. You just want to go back in time and just throttle people and say, what are you doing? But
It's
yeah, I
all
think
lies.
it's all bullshit, mate. We'll come to that a little bit later. But yeah, that's the letters pages, mate. Call the cops because Virtua Fighter, Virtua Cop is here. So massive 6-page spread on this one. Really massive overview of the game. You've got an AM2 interview on here with some interesting pieces. So how much has the game progressed since then? So they're talking about the progress on there, but obviously this was interviewed before they'd finished it. Obviously, the finished version is reviewed in this issue. How often is the CD accessed? Each reading of the data takes about 4 to 5 seconds, so there's no reading data in any one stage. How confident are you? We're aiming for our 100% perfect Saturn conversion. So, yeah, I mean, it's as close to as you can get this one, mate. An absolutely phenomenal port. Obviously, we'll talk about the review in a bit, but you know, it's just this was an event, and you just didn't have anything like this on any other system. We talked about we did the in the last podcast we did the unreleased Sega Saturn games. I talked about Lethal Enforcers and how that was kind of the gold standard at the time for arcade shooting gallery games. And there was thoughts that Virtua Cop would be kind of that with polygons, but it's just so much more than that. It was a revelation. Again, another one that drove the industry forward, inspired games like GoldenEye. It's just you can sense the hype around this one, and it's another one where I just think, how did this not turn more heads? Because there's nothing like it anywhere.
And I mean, it's a phenomenal port. Like, and again, even more so whenever you now know retrospectively that it was a team of rookies that done this.
Yeah.
At the point that you're reading this magazine, you're thinking this is like the absolute top class coders at Sega that are doing this. And it captures everything, like the look, the music, the vibe, the feel, the pace, everything about it is just nailed on. Like we talk about Virtua Cop and Virtua Cop 2. We've both got our individual preferences for what game we like, but I just think the first game is just so iconic in its look. And I know it's a Model 2 game, but part of the way, even though they are texture mapped, the bad guys, the wee guys in the suits, they almost look flat shaded.
Yeah.
So
do
I
some of
don't
the
know
hostages too.
Aye, so I don't know if it's like because it's blending that kind of Model 1 flat shade kind of, even though it's not, but it just looks a bit like that. And then you've got the way that the backgrounds and the environments look, and then you get the reticles coming in and the colours changing and the music. It's just like, it just all comes together into this just melting pot of absolute goodness. Like I say, soundtrack in Virtua Cop 1, just Virtua Cop 2 can't touch it, man. It's just every stage is just nailed on. It just feels like a proper 90s buddy cop action movie. It's like, you know yourself, whenever you start that first level, the Arms Black Market, and there's that note at the start that it kicks off, and it just I don't know what the hell they've used to play, but you've replicated it's hard, but it just the way it just kicks in, and obviously if you're playing it and you get used to where the enemies come out, and you can get kind of really smug whenever you're playing with the Virtua gun. Because my routine is always the minute it starts, shoot out the two windows in the wee cabin, because the wee guy's going to pop up in the right hand window in about 4 villains time, and he's not even going to get his heat up because I'm just going to. I know exactly whenever he's going to appear. It's like just whenever like the truck appears just as the gates open, there's like 3 or 4 wee guys that jump out. They don't get targeted, but they're just in the background. But see taking them out as they jump out the truck. It's so pleasing. It's like you're not getting away. And it's just no. And as you go on with each stage, it just gets more and more advanced. And like we know now that the third stage was using some really, really good VDP 1 and 2 trickery kind of overlapping, because whenever you go along and down into the kind of parking lot, like underground parking lot. And you kind of fight your way through there, and then there's the door at the back, and you go up the stairway, and kind of it feels like you're sliding along the wall, and you're kind of peeking round. Yeah, actually, I always found myself when I was playing it, the way the camera swooped round, you almost actually moved with it. You felt that the game drew you in. And you go up the stairs. There's a couple of bad guys trying, the wee kind of army guys with the kind of bulletproof vest and the masks on. They try and ambush you at the top of the stairs. You come through, you've got the big foyer, and then like the Die Hard style truck reverses through the window, and they all start piling out. It's just, oh man.
You can see a lot of that in the screenshots in here as well.
It's I could talk through that game from start to finish. Honestly, it's just so good.
I mean, I played it and Virtua Cop 2 back to back a few weeks ago. So I took the day off from work for my birthday just so I could have a day to dust about. I remember that playing those. I thought, I'll play those in a CRT, so it's not often I can just play the Saturn and not need to capture footage for anything. So I played them both. And I've got to be honest, I felt like I played Virtua Cop 1 more. I enjoyed it a bit more. And Virtua Cop 2 on that time. I don't know what it was. Probably because I played Virtua Cop 2 that much more, but I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good, mate. It's so good. I think one thing that I really like about this feature is that it's got the Saturn and arcade screenshots side by side. And you think about the screens that you played these games on, and the footage that people would take. You look at that and it does look arcade perfect. In fact, in some ways, the Saturn version on the left looks even better because you've got the more detailed sky.
Yep, seen that.
You've
skybox.
just got the gradient. Yeah, you just got the gradient in the arcade, but in the Saturn you've got a proper skybox. So, God, it's amazing, mate. So yeah, how would you top that? Well, there's only a little game called Virtua Fighter 2 in the next feature.
Right, you're all going to die. Very clever, Sega Saturn Magazine. Very clever.
Yeah, Richard Ledbetter reporting on this one. Interestingly enough, Richard Ledbetter wasn't the editor on this one.
Yes, that's right. He's not stepped up yet. He hasn't become our voice, our leader during this era.
But yeah, the question is, can anyone match the technical prowess of AM2? Well, who did the last Bronx port? I think they're the only ones that actually came close. But yeah, and another massive showcase on here. What I picked out that was really interested in here is that there are some. If they talk about Shundi's bridge isn't going to be in there, so but they say part of the reverse technique and stage background are difficult to convert to the Saturn. So I thought reverse technique. So it talks about Shundi's bridge a little bit later on, and how he couldn't how there was too many polygons to bring that over. But at some point in here, it says, and I can't find the section now, but it says about how some moves from the arcade were removed and changed in the Saturn version, which is the first time that I have ever heard that before. As far as I was aware, is everything that was in the arcade game was in the Saturn game. The only difference was a few of the background details. So I don't know where that came from. Have you ever heard anything like that, mate?
No, I've always assumed that the full move set came over. I mean, what I've noticed whenever I was doing the VF trilogy video and doing the kind of side by sides is that the background details on the Saturn, they are actually slightly smaller. So if you give me 2 seconds.
So, I've actually found it in here. It's in that how is it different to the arcade version? It's in that same red box.
So if you see like that there, so you can see the arcade version. Look how big the building is behind them. But the Saturn version, they've pushed it further back. So they've kind of scaled the backgrounds to kind of suit. But I mean, it's side by side, mate. The Saturn version's incredible. It's like I've said it so many times. For me, it's the technical achievement of the 5th gen that this game is as good as it is on Saturn.
Yeah, I completely agree, mate. Yeah, it's side by side though. Especially in those initial kind of side on ready go sections, they look almost identical. Obviously, Saturn has the more detailed textures. Model 2 has more polygons. But yeah, it's in this same red box where they talk about features such as Shun's Bridge are just two polygon concentrated to be included in the Saturn version of Virtua Fighter 2. But it says, along with a few very obscure moves, and in this place you can expect more game variations. More on this later. Um, so yeah, that's the first I've ever heard of that, mate. Um,
Mm.
very interesting. But yeah, I don't think, given that it's the first that I've heard of it, I don't know if that was kind of just someone's interpretation or just if the wrong information being given, or maybe it is true and it's just that these moves are so obscure that no one's noticed in the intervening 30 years.
Possibly. I mean, all the main ones are there. Like, if you think of, like, for example, like Akira or Wolf, like, you think of the main moves, like Akira with his double kick, his shoulder dash, his stun palm, the one where he kind of ducks behind, under the
Hmm.
shoulder and he bars him from behind, the one where he grabs an arm, pulls him in, and shoves him away. Um, again, Wolf, he's got the kind of double arm suplex, giant swing, standard suplex, clothesline. So all the kind of the main moves are there. They would have to be really obscure, mate. I mean, I've never heard the move sets being different. And again, I take it that would just really be to free up animation frames, really, wouldn't it? Like, but I
Yeah.
can't imagine it would be anything kind of massive in terms of space or taking up system resources for a couple of obscure moves per character. But
My only assumption would be that this interview or this preview was done before the game was completed,
mm,
and as such, maybe because they specifically talk about the counter moves, because they say in that red box, they say part of the reverse technique. So maybe it was the counter moves that were giving some headaches in how they were implemented, and maybe for the final version they sorted it all out. So because obviously the counter moves do exist there. I mean, anyone that's fought Pi on normal difficulty will know that she counters the absolute living hell out of you, non-stop. Throw a
mate,
punch at her,
see never.
flips
Oh,
you over.
see the amount of time. I don't know why I do it every time I get caught out of it. I duck down and I go to push towards and punch to do Akira's poof like that,
Yeah.
and she just goes hi and just grabs your wrist and flips you over, and you're like that. But the worst bit is whenever you've got to the edge of the ring and you're like, right, a wee kind of shoulder dash here, a wee charge, and she's at the ring, and she counters you and sends you, and you just slide at the edge of the. Oh, for God's sake! You've got her down to like that much health that you think you've got her, and she just counters you and you slide at the ring. It's like, oh, come on, man. She's so annoying on normal difficulty. Like, you can spend a good 5-10 minutes on her if she decides to be an absolute shit. And
Yeah.
then if you've turned on AI learning and the options and you're repetitive with your moves, you've no chance, man. She just blocks and counters you to death.
Yeah, she counters everything. She can do the high kicks, the mid kicks, the low kicks, punches. She just
How
yeah,
apt
there we
is
go.
there we
Yeah,
go.
right there on the on the magazine. Yeah, because I'm looking at it on the webmate and I've got it zoomed in a bit on the PC. But yeah, I didn't realize that that image is her flipping Akira over.
Aye, I've seen that hundreds of times.
But yeah, some again really interesting stuff in here for what would be the biggest game on the Sega Saturn. From there, mate, it's a few ads, the Daytona USA Time Trial Tournament, and then it's here that we go. Dear Saturn Mag, I've heard the Saturn couldn't handle Alex Kidd. Is this true? So it's just, yeah, it seems to be a lot of worry and fright about whether or not the Sega Saturn has what it takes to take the cut into the gaming mustard. Has what it takes to cut the gaming mustard. Sega Saturn magazine puts a stake in the heart of the rumor mongering. It's amazing, mate. Nothing ever changes. It's as rife then as it is now. Uh, and yeah, they
Oh,
talk about consumers in the retail war. Since you're reading Sega Saturn Magazine, it's fairly safe to assume that you either have a Saturn already or you're close to buying one. But there's many undecided thousands who've got their witting targets of a marketing barrage. It's not just the sinister cult of advertising that's messing with everyone's minds. There's a whole world of conjecture and misinformation out there already to snag the unsuspecting. So yeah, it's you can't deny the Saturn started out with a bad rep. So yeah, as we were saying earlier, mate, this early in its life, it's already getting it from all corners, and it's upsetting, to be honest, to see it just wasn't given a chance, was it?
No, no, it wasn't. It was very much written off. Like even here they're talking about the media, the bias that's there, retail, and it's just like stuff was being spun from a very, very early stage in the Saturn's life to essentially discredit it.
So yeah, mate, they talk about how Virtua Fighter and Daytona now looks dated, they say, despite, last issue they were talking about how it plays perfectly. They talk about the fact that in Japan there's no real premium quality software apart from things like Gale Racer and Tama. But obviously, I read Clockwork Knight and Victory Girl, which they're not fans of. But yeah, they talk about how it is doom and gloom. People are eager to pounce on the nascent 32-bit machine in the interest of a story. Began bandying their prophecies of doom for the Sonic Wranglers. So yeah, it's all. If it's sad to see it at this stage, mate, and it's weird that it just kind of persists. These first few months of bad impressions really did just taint the Saturn forever. It felt like, it's a narrative that we're still trying to change now, and
I
this
know,
is like
and
the first stab in Sega Saturn magazine.
aye, and it's like I understand what people say about like first impressions. And even then, like, as good as like Ridge Racer was on PS1, and because it was perceived as being arcade perfect, despite running at half the frame rate of the arcade, which nobody really seems to point out. Um, Even though there was those early kind of hiccups for the Saturn, right? It seemed that like they were almost, like I say, the media and certain developers and kind of retail media and certain developers, they kind of they stuck with it. Like they just kept pushing that narrative. Like it didn't matter what the Saturn was showing that it was capable of with like the big three, with stuff like Knights or the Capcom stuff, the 2D stuff, anything that was coming out later on that was showing what the machine was capable of. Like they just kept sticking to this narrative. Like they'd made their mind up within the first
Yeah,
few months, and then nothing was going to change their mind. You
yeah,
know, and that's the annoying thing. It was like it's quite unprofessional in a way, and it did feel back then like you were constantly fighting against. And that's why we've always said we felt like we were in this kind of really special club that had all these amazing games that nobody wanted to play. It was like,
yeah,
and you couldn't believe why you're going home and you're playing these games. You're playing these games with your mate who's you've got. I said mate, no mates, because you had one mate with a saddle, but you're playing these games and they're not bad games. That's the thing. None of these games were bad games, but it just felt like nobody wants to buy them. And there was a narrative being spun around PlayStation without it having the software to back up the reputation
yeah,
it was getting. It was like, well, hold on a minute. What's pushing this? What was pushing it was four letters on the lid. Sony.
yeah,
Because it's undeniable that, especially in the 80s and 90s, like Sony, like you don't really, like people don't really buy unless you're like a real enthusiast now. It's like people don't really buy like Sony CD players or Sony Walkmans or Sony hi-fi separates or like mini disc players are a thing in the past. It's like unless you're really an AV kind of enthusiast, whether it be retro or modern, you're not really going to seek out Sony equipment. Maybe a Sony TV at a push, but back then, man, like Sony were everywhere. They were selling you like blank VHSs, blank audio tapes, as I said, mini disc portable players, mini disc decks for your separate sci-fi, Walkman, CD players, CD MP3 player, you know, everything they were in everything, VHS players, they had TVs, they were just everywhere
Yeah,
in
they
the
were
80s and 90s.
ubiquitous.
Aye. They were seen as like the upper echelon of like tech. Like you were to gravitate towards owning a Sony, you know, if you had a
Mm.
Sony and your mate had a Grundig, you know, you know, it was you were seen as being the upper class of the tech world, you know, it was like, but I definitely think that there was no software on PlayStation at the time the Saturn had its big three that warranted Sony getting the push by developers, retail, and media that it did. And
Yeah.
that's what's I think is really unfair. It's like, and I know it's like let it go, guys. It's over. It's the past. But
Mm.
it is jarring to see that this system, which is belittled and berated and labelled as this abject difficulty program for, you know, bastardized 3D processor flung in at the last minute, myth, rubbish. This system that just shouldn't have happened. It was designed the way Sega designed their arcade hardware. There
Yeah.
was nothing wrong with the design. What was wrong with the design is that basically Sony came up with a development kit because they bought Psygnosis to get SN systems and made it really, really easy. So developers didn't want to take the time to learn SGL. If they'd taken the time to learn SGL, the results of their games would have been better, but they didn't. So, I mean, it's interesting that you're in issue 2 of this magazine, and they're already myth busting. They're
Yeah.
already again another fire getting put out.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I was picking out on here because I've got to be honest, the design of this page isn't great. The background makes a lot of the white on red and green text a little bit hard to read.
It's not a great
Festive,
design
maybe.
choice.
Festive,
That's like,
maybe, but yes, they talk about pre-Christmas market, but they're saying the Saturn is still coming in for a hard time, but not just from biased or jaded press types, but also from biased and jaded consumers and even biased and jaded developers. But that's only to be
exactly.
expected in Christmas market established in tussle to the scale that's currently underway. So they say it's developers that are biased and jaded. You know, as you said, mate, they'd already made their mind up. Some of them had nailed their mast to the Sony, it's nailed their flag to the Sony mast that early on. And it's like, yeah, I'm not playing, I'm not making my game for the Saturn. And that petered on. Obviously, retail were biased as well because, as we say, mate, Sony were ubiquitous in tech. They had everything: VHS players, televisions, hi-fi, stereos, Walkmans, Discmans, mini discs, blank VHS. They had everything. Um, are you going to tell that you know, if they say, can you do us a favor and promote the PS1 over the Saturn? Of course they're going to do it. But there we go, man. We've said this 100 times, but it's in a way it's kind of vindicating seeing it there, or but it's also kind of heartbreaking as well.
Definitely annoying.
It is, mate. But we'll move on. I think we've got the review soon. But first, we've got Thunderhawk, which we talked a bit about Thunderhawk in the last issue, so we won't go into that.
Yeah.
But cracking game. X-Men Children of the Atom. You know, this one is an absolute classic. I don't think there's probably too much to say on this one, but you know, interesting after the bashing that Street Fighter the movie got, where they said that 2D fighting games are old hat, where they're now giving this a 4-page spread.
They
But
seem
yeah,
very
this is
excited by it as well.
yeah. I think I think this is Rich, but he was a big Marvel fan at the time, wasn't he?
Hmm.
So young, dumb, and full of radium. Yeah, Richard Ledbetter is excited about this one. And it even talks about Marvel superheroes, which just got announced for the arcade coming after. I didn't know if we want to talk about the next game here or if we talk about the review, mate, but might as well talk about it here. Victory Boxing. I actually really like this game. I've got a real soft spot for it. One of the oldest games that I've got. I played it. I think I played it on the PS1 first. But I've always liked the look of it because it had the kind of the quads very. The PlayStation version is very smooth looking. The Saturn version has like the very polygonal characters that gives it a bit of a Virtua Fighter look.
Aye.
But I really do like this game. Bit basic now, but yeah, I love it. Especially with the corner man always shouting you, "Back off and catch your breath."
Oh mate, I'm not a big fan of boxing games, I have to say. So prefer to
Yeah.
watch the boxing, and even if I say I watch, I only watch the big fights. You know what I mean? And then complain that I've spent 25 quid to fall asleep as the main event starts. You know, you've ate all your munchies for the undercard. Your 6 pack of cheese and onion squares have been decimated. Your grab bag of Maltesers is down to the last four. Your Iron Brew's done, and then the main event starts, and you're lying there in a food coma, knackered. And you wake up just to see the interviews at the end with a wee bit of drool joining your chin to your shoulder because you've been lying like that on the couch.
Well, at least Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua will be on Netflix, mate. You don't have to pony up 25 quid.
Mate, how far has Anthony Joshua fell that he's doing that? That's tragic, man. Honestly. Oh my God.
But yeah, I think Victory Boxing, absolutely a brilliant early boxing game. So yeah, it gets reviewed later on this issue, so we'll touch on it then. And of course, mate, no section of showcases in the middle of the mag would be complete without rounding off the big three with a nice Sega Rally feature. This one a little bit shorter, given that Sega Rally is still a couple of months or about a month away. It's a little bit behind the other two, but you can really see that this is taking shape now. Imagine the US version isn't far away now, but I think the big highlights here are that the two-player mode is intact. We've got signs of the split screen and the two-player menu, and God, mate, I think looking at the detail on this compared to other racing games that you see on this console in this magazine, and even compared to the PlayStation lot that were earlier on, you just knew that this game was special. I mean, did you have this mag back in the day, and did you see this?
I was getting a fair shoe one, yeah. So that I'd already had the tape and seen the footage on that, and I'm like, oh, like you couldn't believe this. I said, you're watching that, and even though like the VF2 character movement demos, like even though there was no hitboxes, it was only throws. Like the level of detail, you couldn't believe. I'm like, is this the same machine? It's like, what is this? Like it was just unbelievable. Like at that point, I had no idea that Sega Rally would go on to become my favourite Saturn game. But it's just, the two-player mode was brilliant. Me and Sam played that so much. He never beat me. He'll now WhatsApp me after hearing that. I might have beat you a couple of times. But
he should be watching this when the challenge has been laid down, Sam. You got to take him down.
Sit, mate, head out to mine. Get an empty. Get some munchies in. Sega Rally, split screen. Got it hooked up with the SSC, mate. Got the timings, they're all sorted. Looks great. 55-inch, a lot better than the 21-inch we were sitting huddled round split screen back in the day, mate. So, aye. But no, it's just again, you're in issue 2 and you're seeing games of that quality. You know, it's crazy. And the screenshots of every single game, they're all Saturn versions. It's not like the previous, like kind of the stuff we've talked about, like the Psygnosis stuff, where it was like PlayStation shots. These are Saturn port screenshots. You're seeing what the system you've bought is doing. Even for those screenshots, look at the draw distance. Like even the screenshot on Forest above the word speed on page 65 there, like the mountains in the background, the trees. Look at the draw distance. Well, I've got a slight issue with the Celica being that far behind the Delta, I have to say. I think that should be the best. My car of choice is not lagging behind there. I'm not happy with that. But no, it's phenomenal to see games of that quality. Again,
good flight. Yeah, go on.
It's the contradiction. It's like they're fighting these fires going like, there's all this bad information about Saturn and bias against it, and like, it's no getting a chance, and we're myth busting. And then on the other hand, they're going, look at all these amazing games. It's like And I think it actually says that on that Mythbusting.
It's,
There's a line there. It says, where is it? It's there. It says about like just look at the games, just look
yeah,
at them. God damn it! It's
yeah.
like
It's
you
well,
know,
it's. I was going to quote the caption next to the speed ahead, underneath the Celica and the Delta picture. It says, "My God, look at these graphics! Take a flaming look at these graphics, you heathens! Not bad, eh?
not bad, eh? Aye.
This is all done on the Saturn, and they haven't even begun to learn to program it properly yet."
And now knowing what we do, it wasn't made with SGL. Mizuguchi and his wee team, which included the Mega Drive Virtua Racing team,
Yep,
built it from the ground up. And Mizuguchi himself says it's not a port; it's a whole new version for Saturn. So again, that's the amazing thing about doing something like this, like 3 decades later, like because
yeah,
all the stuff that we've learned since, and then going back and reading these magazines, and it's like applying the context of what we've learned to what we were reading back then. It's interesting, mate.
it is, mate. But yeah, only 3 pages there, and it mostly talks about the ghost mode, the two-player mode, and a few other bits and pieces. Says that they wanted to review it this issue, which would have been great to get all the big three in here, but alas. Um, there's the tip section, which we won't get into, but reviews. So we've already talked Virtua Cop, 96%, mate. I don't think either of us are going to argue with that. What can we say?
Nope.
This is arcade perfect as far as we can tell. Obviously, with hindsight, we know it's not, but God, it's close. Even if it's half the frame rate and a lower resolution, it's
I think arcade perfect had a different meaning in the mid 90s because like arcade ports like on Mega Drive or home computers, they were very obviously, compromised in terms of being, stripped back to fit onto the kind of cartridge
mm,
size or X amount of discs or stuff like that. But when you're getting these games, arcade games, Model 2 games on a compact disc, and you've got that amazing soundtrack, the 3D graphics, gameplay's intact. For all intents and purposes, looking at it, I can see why the term arcade perfect was used. As you say, mate,
yeah,
today's terms, you know it's not. None of the three games are arcade perfect, the big three, but they're, as they say, it's damned bloody close.
yeah. Speaking of which, mate, the next review is just a little game called Virtua Fighter 2, a whopping 98%. Um, to be honest, can't disagree with that either, because as far as I'm concerned, mate, it couldn't really be any better. I think if you, what would you do? You'd add more characters, it would break the balance of the game. Tekken didn't care about balance, so that's why I could dump a load of characters in there. CGI movies for endings, what's that going to really add to the game? It's as a game of that time at that moment. As a port of one of as a port of the most advanced fighting game on the planet. And there is no argument with that. There is no game that looked or played anywhere near that level. Coming to the Sega Saturn as it did, it's close to perfect. I don't think you could really think of a way that you could improve Virtua Fighter 2 on the Sega Saturn.
No, no. Well, the thing is, in that they gave sound 94, right? Sound should be 98 as well, right? Because every track is phenomenal. Like, see, all the music's like it's it's the best OST of any of the Virtua Fighter games for me. Like, it's so many. Like, obviously, you've got Akira's Ride the Tiger, Jeffrey stage, phenomenal. Sarah stage, phenomenal. It's just like even Gerald's underwater fighting that doom 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 doom, and that just adds to the sense of tension. Aye, adds to the sense of tension. And then you get that kind of wee bit you did, and then you get a clong as you've managed to hit her for once. But it's that just says here the best audio visuals ever seen on any home machine, coupled with the most in-depth beat 'em up gameplay witnessed on any combat game. Virtua Fighter 2 is quite frankly too good to be true, which again echoes what I've said many times at Saturn. VF2 has no right to be as good as it is.
No.
It's and it's still my favourite way to play the game. Mate, if I play VF2, I play the Saturn version. I've got
Yeah.
I've got my laptop there with M2 emulator on it. I've got the Xbox Series S with the 360 version on it. I go to me, Virtua Fighter 2 is it's an arcade game first and foremost, but it's a Saturn game. It just when I hear that, I go, that's a Sega Saturn game. It's like that's my go-to to play it
Yeah.
because high resolution mode, 60 FPS, the controls are so responsive. Like again, if you're playing on a good scaler, like your OSSC or your retro tanks, and you've no latency, mate, it's butter. It's like it's just your thumbs are just you just become one with the D-pad. It's like the moves just roll off your hand. It's like there's no delay. It's just so good. Oh, I love these
Yeah.
games. Honestly, it's just
Yeah, I mean, I've got the main version on PC. I've got the 360 version, backward compatible with Xbox One and Series X. Got it on PS2 via the Sega Ages. Not the physical version. Got it on the hard drive via 3 boot. It's my go-to, mate. I always play the Sega Saturn version. Um, so yeah, Firestorm Thunderhawk 2. I was surprised to see that get 90%. And cracking
that's
title
well
which
earned.
hardcore deathmongers should fall in love with sweetly. And you know what? I'm not going to argue with that either. I think that's probably if I was going to be really picky, maybe a little bit too high. But nah, man, I think as we said before, it's a cracking game.
Aye, I mean, I think if you're again, you try to take the kind of the bias of kind of enjoying it because it was one of the games I got in my kind of my bundle, and it's like I had a lot of fun with it. I mean, graphics 93. I mean, if you're giving like VF2's get 98.
Yeah,
See Thunderhawk 2, I wouldn't I maybe maybe an 88%, 87, 88. I think it would have been kind of more.
Virtua Cop got 95. So having that two away from Virtua Cop with the amount of drawing and popping, the LOD loads on Thunderhawk
Mm,
2 are quite noticeable. It's not a consistent frame rate, so yeah, I think it's overly generous there, but playability and lastability, I think, are nailed on.
aye.
It's a
Yep.
very
Yep.
enjoyable game, big game. There's a lot to get through on there. Great presentation. Um, so yeah, I think it's 9 out of 10, 90%. I think it's well deserved, mate.
Aye. That's fine, aye.
What do you think of the
That's
next
that's
one?
that's fine. As if we're going to change it. It's like
Yeah,
that's fine.
yeah. What do you think of the next one? High
Uh,
Octane. Might not have a big name license, but this is a varied and enjoyable enough to warrant further investigation. 90% for High Octane.
no, mate.
What are your thoughts on High Octane, mate?
No. Just no.
Can I
Like
surprise you?
very much so. I mean,
I
I
know, I think
wouldn't
it's crap as well. I
no,
think
but I
it's
mean,
awful. It's a
aye.
terrible game.
I mean, it says here it's enjoyable enough to warrant further investigation, which translates to rent it for a weekend. That's no a 90% game, right? I mean, who reviewed that? Probably that rad guy. And I think it's
Yeah.
like the review. Where is it? Is it? It was
Yeah,
rad.
it's
There you
red.
go.
It's red.
Oh, cover me shocked. You know what I mean? Imagine that. No, you
The frame
know.
rate is awful on it. It's a horrible, clunky racing game that Bullfrog threw together on the Magic Carpet engine because they needed to meet a quota for EA, and they needed to get a game out quickly. So they threw this together, and it works well enough on P. This has been without the aid of AM2's SGOS. I mean, of course it hasn't. They threw it together in a few weeks, maybe a little longer. But Peter Molyneux is infamous for saying that it was thrown together quickly. Was okay on the PC. Was terrible. It's terrible on the Saturn. It's so bad. It's barely playable. I don't know how they could have given it. I mean, they've given what have they given the graphics here? 90. It's ugly. The drawing distance is appalling. If you want a futuristic racer, there's another futuristic racer in here in this magazine that's reviewed that I think is better than this, and that's not great either.
I mean, you're giving that 90. You're giving that the same as Thunderhawk 2.
Oh God, they're not on the not on the. It kind of undermines the other scores, doesn't it? It's a shame.
Not
But
even the
yeah,
same league, not even the same fucking sport. It's like
yeah,
Jules v Pulp Fiction. You know what I mean? It's like ain't no ballpark either. That's just no.
yeah. Rich
Moving on.
reviewed. Rad reviewed Virtua Cop. Rich reviewed Virtua Fighter 2, and then Rad's done every other one so far. And he also reviews Victory Boxing. 89%, which I would agree with. But you may not on this one. I think it's. I
That's
think.
all right. Nah, I mean it's a good box. If you like boxing, I can see why. Like I just even like Ready to Rumble and Dreamcast, mate. It's like it's I played it for the novelty factor for the
Yeah,
characters. Like I know the kind of the two buttons each for the limb, kind of high and low punch for left and right arm and all that. And it was, but nah, it's just it was more for novelty factor. I mean, I would probably say that Victory Boxing is probably a better boxing game than Ready to Rumble.
possibly.
It's
I
you
would say
know
that
it.
Victory Boxing has aged. It's more the
Oh,
nostalgia that
aye,
brings me back now.
aye.
But
In
I thought
terms
at the
of
time it was great.
aye, if you're a kind of boxing person, you're wanting a kind of closer kind of representation to
Mhm.
the actual sport, whereas also Ready to Rumble and Dreamcast is just pure comedy.
Yeah.
It's time to dance. It's time to dance. Dance, sucker. Rumble.
Rumble.
Oh, man.
Oh,
Afro Thunder, man. What a character. When I fight, he's got a black eye and a tooth missing. He's like that. Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely brilliant, man.
Oh, next one, mate. We've got Golden Axe the Duel, which is the text around this one is quite interesting. It says, oh God, if you the aged Golden Axe coin-op would look pretty unimpressive by today's standards. It says further down, what does it say? It says something about if you're getting a Mega Drive, you'd get a dusty old Mega Drive cart with it, and it's just like, well. I'd rather have had Revenge of Death Adder, thanks, than this.
Yep.
But I'm trying to see where it is in here now. Oh, yeah, that's it. As Mega, not so close as we remembered. Mega Drive conversion is now tragically dated, as some lucky punters will find out this Christmas when they get the Mega Drive and Sega's Mega Game Pack, which seems extremely harsh and belittling of the Mega Drive and its amazing Golden Axe port. I think what?
Just
Um,
unnecessarily harsh, that, man. It's just like, just dropping the previous gen like an old hat. Just like, we'll just insult it on the way out the door. You know,
yeah,
it's
I know.
like, no, we should have had Revenge of Death Adam, mate. That's just, again, 2D into it. And even though it's got super scaling kind of properties in it, you know, the kind of levels, the kind of bits between stages where you walk through the kind of wee forest corridor and the wee
Yeah,
kind of guys appear and you kick them to get the potions and stuff
yeah,
like that. But I just in general the sprite work, the animation work on Revenge of Death Adder is absolutely gorgeous, and one of the reasons to buy the Astral City Mini, to be fair,
yeah. Agree.
to get that, you know what I mean. But Golden Axe to Joe, man, decent enough fighting game, but 85, no,
Yeah, maybe not at least 5% off of that. It's not. I've always been a bit of a Golden Axe to Duel apologist in that I think it is a decent Samurai Showdown clone with a Street
mm-hmm.
Fighter button setup and kind of some unique ideas with the Golden Axe brand, but it's not an amazing game. It's just a kind of an enjoyable and competent fighting game.
Aye.
Mansion of Hidden Souls. I've never been able to get into this one. And
No.
it's definitely a step down from the Mega CD game. So 69 is probably right there. Um, Heberike's Papoon, which is not the name that this game has. It's something slightly different, but it's just Puyo Puyo. 68 seems probably a little bit harsh. You look at the score and it seems low, but it says the blurb, not exactly awful, but pedestrian example of a classic puzzle format. So it really is kind of not much to see here, really, is there?
No.
And this is the game that I was saying is better than
A
High
hundred
Octane,
percent.
mate. Cyber Speedway. Not an amazing game, but to be honest, quite a fun one with bags of past personality, I think. It's not Wipeout. Never was going to be Wipeout, but it's a okay looking, okay playing Saturn game. And I quite enjoy booting this one up about now and again, mate. What about you?
I play it, but I play Grand Chaser for the simple
Yes.
reason the soundtrack. Because if you've watched the More Games reel on the bootleg sampler disc and you recognize the music down, that's by Bygone Dogs, and that's actually a track from the Western version of Cyber Speedway. Bygone Dogs soundtrack does not work with that game. Grand Chaser's soundtrack works very well with the game. It's a completely different feel and vibe. I've no idea what they were doing, picking Bygone Dogs to do. What was wrong with the soundtrack that you had to change it? Like, but aye, the track design's better than High Octane. The controls are better. Looks a hell of a lot better. It's got more impressive draw distance. The visuals are better. It's not I'm a massively. It's not going to challenge Wipeout for best kind of spaceship hovercraft style racer, but to be what 20 odd% behind,
Yeah.
nah. Go to
Yeah.
bed, Rads. You're drunk. In fact, he's
Did
reviewed
he
Cyber
review this as well?
Speedways. Aye. Was he getting paid by the review back then, man? Because he's like, Rich is obviously at this point getting ready to move over to the big seat. That's what
Rich is Mr. Features, man, at this
aye,
point, isn't he? Rad's getting all the games to review. But
aye.
yeah, a good idea. Well designed, but poorly executed. I mean, 68 is, I don't know, kind of a little bit higher, maybe. It's a seven out of 10 all day, this one. So I suppose maybe 68% is about right. I mean, it's better than High Octane. High Octane's a 40% for me, a 4 out of 10.
Oh, aye. That's pish.
But yeah, it's interesting that it came out this late in Power Regions. But there we go, mate.
Aye.
That brings us to the end of the reviews. There's a nice advert for Maximum here, which is just a really good piece of stock art for Virtua Fighter 2.
Yep.
And then from there, obviously we've got the Mega Drive part. In the 16-bit magazine, there's a 32X review. Calibri, which I was playing recently, and it's not great.
No way. Super skid marks.
Yeah, from Codemasters.
Had that in the
That was
Amiga, mate. That was great fun.
yeah, it's isometric micro machines basically.
Yeah. With really cool, like, skid effects on the gravel on the tracks. Brilliant. A lot of fun
Feels
in
sad
Amiga
to
with
see
that.
Fantasy Star 4 relegated to half a page of review in what was used to be the official Sega magazine. Um, but yeah, it's low marks in sound and graphics for some reason. The graphics on this are a bit of a step up on the previous game, but yeah, massive game. Just kind of getting shoved on, shuffled out on here. But there we go, mate. And once we get out of the Mega Drive part, we're kind of in the realm of, last issue we were saying, right, with these games, it's quite interesting to see what the reviews were, but these we reviewed basically last issue. So
Yeah. The game of the month is Clockwork Knight 2. So you get SimCity 2000. We touched on that in the last episode of this. Mortal Kombat 2. NBA Jam we touched on. Was it the tournament edition? World
yeah,
Series Baseball, NHL Hockey, Rayman Theme Park we touched on. Robotica as
yeah.
well. And then we're back to CD films for your video CD card at 270 quid. We have Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, The Black Stallion, The Cranberries, Doors and Windows, and of course the classic Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
5 out of 5 for Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Mate, every time I hear Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, I just think of Jim Carrey and Ace
I know.
Ventura. Chitty!
Chitty chitty bang bang, chitty bang bang.
Bang bang, yeah.
And that's us, mate. So the next issue is a Sega Saturn demo disc. So an exclusive Sega demo disc. So I have to make sure we've got that one. What would that be? Sega Flash Volume 1? I
Probably,
need to
mate. Aye.
check.
And it's issue 3 out December 15th. And then there's an advert for my one-time favourite mail order gaming company, Gameplay. Price, choice, quality, service. They certainly matched every single one of those metrics. They were phenomenal.
Those Sega Saturn packs are brilliant value, by the way. You know, you get Saturn Virtua Fighter and Panzer Dragoon for 350 quid. That's a decent deal. And if you get an extra pad, that's only 12.99. Now I'd imagine that's one of the third party Saturn pads.
Probably,
But
aye.
still.
It's the one you get your mate
Yeah.
to play Sega Rally split screen.
Well, that's a good deal. I mean, PlayStation. That's the thing. Saturn with Virtua Fighter is 320 quid. A PlayStation, and you pick a game there, and you've got you basically the same price, and that doesn't include a memory card or any sort of storage. So
The usual story, mate. $2.99 was a scam.
it was, mate. It was indeed. But mate, that brings us to the end of another issue, and a cracking one that was as well. Looking forward to getting to the next issue. But yeah, as far as December's go, you know, end of 1995 for the Saturn was, after a bumpy start, starting to look pretty rosy with the first two of the big three landing. Obviously, Virtua Fighter 2 wouldn't come over until the new year. Sega Rally a little bit after. Um, but yeah, it looked like the fortunes were changing for the Sega Saturn at last after that rocky start. Obviously, we know what would happen, but it was just nice to revel in this optimism in the face of these the unprecedented quality of the big three. What do you think?
I mean, I think what we're going to hopefully kind of, show and tell and hopefully kind of get across is that as we go further into these issues, like you look at it just now, there's like those kind of like naysayers and kind of wee bits of negatives for the kind of the start, the first kind of few months, but you're seeing the ramp up in quality. You're seeing lots of software. Yeah, it was crap, but you're still seeing EA bringing FIFA over. You're still seeing Capcom coming over with their 2D games. Everything felt like Saturn was getting everything Psygnosis games. It's going to be really interesting as we go further in, as we start to see these drying up and we see import reviews coming over. So it's a journey. Sega Saturn Magazine is a brilliant visual representation of Saturn's life in the UK.
Oh yeah.
And it's kind of wait to keep talking through them, mate. It's a great idea for a podcast, mate. So we've got plenty more to get through.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got tons to get through. Yeah, I have to make sure that we'll have to talk about the demo disc when we get to the next one. But for now, that's the end of this episode. Hope that you guys have enjoyed it, and those listening on Radio Sega for Winterfest getting this one a day early. And we'd love to know what you think. You know, what did you think of the reviews? Which ones do you agree with? Which ones do you disagree with? What did you think about the kind of the myth busting, the state of the Sega Saturn at the time? You know, get in touch. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And you know, if you're watching on YouTube, if you could give us a like and a subscribe, that really helps the channel. And if you want to be extra mega, you can become a member from as little as 99p. You get a bunch of awesome perks. Top tier members at the Akira All Access level get every video that we make comes to them a little bit early, and they get their names read out as a special thanks, just like James is going to do right now.
Certainly, Akira All Access members for today's show. Oh, we have G-Man, we have Stiff Peaks, we have I Am Mikowski, Craig Williamson, Resident SD, P-Wall, Peter 007, Nick Tullock, Greg Matthews, Tom Fum, Kaiju Leviathan, Zed Lost Cowboy, Zed, David Owens, and Drickass Zero. So thank you very much to all our members and subscribers for your continued support. And if a monthly membership is not your thing, then no problem at all. We just appreciate you being here, spending your time with us, lending us your ears, and supporting the channel by liking, sharing, subscribing, getting involved in the comments, join the Discord. That's kind of kicked off a bit as well. Really enjoying getting involved with people on there. So yeah, thank you very much to all our members and subscribers for your support.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks again for tuning in, whether it's on the audio version, whether it's on the YouTube version. We're just thrilled to have you with us, coming along on this journey, just listen to a pair of old grumpy Sega fans reminiscing about the good times, the Sega heyday of the 90s. So stay tuned. Until next time, we will see you on the Sega side.
Sega!